All right. Awesome. We got Jess in the house, better known as Rosie View Photography, which I will most likely call you 85 times because that's how I've known you in the chat forever. So like when I refer to you, my son calls you Rosie View. Like
That's so
as
cute.
yeah. So met you because we are both Semon podcast nerds and
Yep.
CrossFit nerds. And then I happened to stumble upon one of your Instagram lives.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and you were telling us about your day.
My dog's
And
just right
I
here.
started talking to you and we started geeking out over cameras and you know, the podcasting and all the stuff. So
Yep.
um it was a really good time. And I always catch your photos in my feed.
Hmm.
So it's always like, and it's the family photos, right? So it's the ones of you taking pictures of families who are expecting a baby or marriages or special times in people's lives. And I've always loved them. I've always liked them. Um, and so I feel like that's a major responsibility, right?
Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, family photos too. Like, it's hard to describe because when I first started doing photography, family photos, I tried to like make everything like look perfect. And a lot of families would be like, our kids are not going to sit still for more than 5 minutes. And once I got in more into family photography, it became like more noticeable. Like, okay, I need to like have the family interact with the kids and whatnot to like capture those like timeless moments of like whatever the kids are doing. And those are like the most favorite photos. They're not even posed. They're not.
You just
Uh,
let them go
yep.
and they just create kind of the photo
Yep.
for you.
It's kind of crazy chaos, and the parents normally are like, "Oh my gosh, this is what they would do at home," um, or if we're at their house, the kids act wild, and I just laugh the whole time because I think it's great. The parents are like, "Nah, not so much," but yeah.
I always Did you know that you always wanted to do that? Was that something was Did you just grow up playing with cameras and that was your thing, or was that something that you came to later in life?
Um, well, photography has kind of been, man. I think I've had a camera in my hand since I was like 5 or 6. I grew up on a dairy farm in small town Wisconsin, and um, so I was always outside taking photos of stuff, just random things like the cows, cats, out in the fields, tractors, all the things. Um, oh my gosh, I just saw Young Clark's comment. I
Yeah,
just
go ahead. You can answer it. I was gonna pull it up anyway. And
oh
then
my
this one too.
you can't
You
milk
ever
a
milk the
cat.
cat? I remember the movie. I know it's from a movie.
Um, so what's really cool about growing up on a farm is so my dad was very involved with it's called 4-H and also FFA, and
Yeah.
it's not all about farming anymore. It's about a wide scheme of agriculture in general. And every year at the county fair, which this sounds so Wisconsin Midwest, but we would enter in like I used to show cows at the fair. I showed steers at the fair, all the things. And then you also could take projects. So I got into photography, like the project side, and started entering in my photos. And I like got blue ribbons and like even had a photo go to the state fair, which is like a big deal as a photographer, like kid, I guess, you know. Um, and then yeah, I just always had a camera in my hand. I always kind of like had the eye, is what people always say. Um, but then what really got me more into it was high school. My freshman year of high school, we had to do this class where we had to like follow somebody around at their job, so like a job shadow. And
Yeah, I
my
remember
older
that.
sister, yeah, and my
Yeah,
older sister,
absolutely.
my older sister had just gotten her senior photos taken that summer, so like I already knew a photographer, so I was like, oh, I'll just job shadow this photographer. I job shot the photographer, and I was like so interested and like asked a ton of questions. And then literally the next day they were like, "Hey, we want to hire you." Me? I'm a freshman in high school. And they're like, "Yeah, we want you to come along with us and be like a videographer / photographer at weddings." And I was like, okay. So they trained me all hands on. By the probably like the third or fourth wedding, I knew the ins and outs of how a wedding day would go. Already had one bridezilla under my belt, so I
was gonna ask you that.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Tell us
crazy clients,
your worst
crazy
bridezilla.
clients.
It's not even like the brides necessarily. Sometimes it's like the mom or the mother-in-law. It's crazy.
That are the worst.
Yeah.
Did they just like look at your photos and be like, "No, that's terrible. Let's restage it," or "We have to stage this," or?
It's more like you have the mother-in-law or the mom of the bride like telling you exactly what photos you need to be taking next, and you're like, "Yo, I know exactly what I'm doing. It's all up here. This is like my 1000th wedding I've ever shot. Yeah. Like, I'm a professional. Yeah. This is why you hired. This is why they hired me. Like, don't worry." But yeah, so I've really just only had like those kinds of situations, nothing like too crazy with the bride. I've had some grooms that have gotten so wasted that like when they had their first dance, they had no idea what was going on.
Oh,
that's always a great time.
Do you give those photos out? Like, are you like, here are those photos of your wasted husband doing the first, like
they get their photos.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah. So yeah. God. Oh my gosh. All the comments. But yeah, so getting back to like, so long story short, the photographer that I worked for in high school, she actually was going through a really, really horrible divorce when I was like a senior in high school. So she closed her studio down and had to get a job that had insurance because she had a small daughter. So I took on basically like clients of hers because they knew who I was and they like had families and all the things. So like I kind of just went into that. Gotcha. And then I did photography. Like I did a couple weddings by myself. I did a lot of senior pictures, all the things. And then I kind of stopped doing it for a second because when you graduate high school, they're like, "Oh, you need to go to college and do all the things." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it." And I went to college, like tech school for like a semester and literally was like, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever done. Why am I paying to go to school when I know I can be doing this photography thing and have my own business?" And I was still working on the farm. Like I still work on the farm now. So like, it wasn't for me. So here I am.
So full-time job and a business of your own.
Yeah.
And you knew and it just was an apprenticeship. You just learned from basically being an apprentice and didn't have to pay for college and didn't have to pay for whatever.
Yep. Basically like kind of was given like the rundown on how to shoot manual, which that's a whole side topic I could get into. But yeah, just kind of like how to shoot a full wedding day and like the things not to do and just like the ins and outs of like how to run your business and all the things. Like I've obviously made mistakes, but there's so many like amazing apps you can use now and just makes things easier on the business side.
When did you start? You said there's so many apps now. So when did you actually start?
Like full time or?
Well, when did you start learning? Because that makes me believe you learned before.
Oh, yeah. I learned way before this.
All these extra
things. I used to send contracts to my clients like in the mail. So I would type out their contracts and have it send in the mail and then have them sign it and send it back and like do everything. I mean, I would still talk on the phone. I really didn't do a lot of email stuff, but I would talk on the phone a lot. So like they knew.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Nope.
So they knew like what I sounded like and all that stuff. So I did things old school for a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're sending mail, I don't even think people know, or the younger generation knows how to
No, I don't think so.
send. Oh, what
Yeah.
do we got? How has the improvements on technology made the job? With everyone thinking they're a photographer now, they have an iPhone and a tripod. It's
Mm,
not the same.
it's not the same. Photographer, like so I've had plenty of people say like, oh, I'll just have my cousin shoot my wedding with their iPhone. Good luck. Because okay, they might take a really great photo on their iPhone, but like they don't know how to fix things on their phone with lighting. Like literally throughout a wedding day, it could be the sunniest day ever, and then all of a sudden it's cloudy and super dark, or you're inside a church that has like the most horrific lighting in the entire world. And then you go from there to outside to inside. Like you have to know everything and anything about lighting, how to work your flash. What if your camera fails? Like you need to have a backup camera, and then you have to have a backup camera for your backup camera. Like,
Oh, fire. Jake Chapman, CrossFit, fire. Sort of like everyone at CrossFit gyms thinks they're athletes. Word.
he's not wrong.
No,
He's
you're not
No,
wrong.
you're not wrong.
Not wrong at all. I honestly, like, probably the last 2 years, I finally have been able to like get the nerve to actually say like I'm a professional photographer. For the longest time, I was like, I'm not a photographer. Like I'm not professional. And then when people started like saying, "No, you're like a really good photographer. Like you're professional. Your photos are amazing. You're a photographer." Then I was like, okay, fine. I finally need to like start saying that. But yeah, like I was just
You
like,
deserve it.
you know.
And
So,
I just want to touch base real quick. I love how you explain that you learned because your feet were on the ground. And I think that we miss that. Everyone, like for certain things, like, yeah, do you have to know the book stuff? Do you have to get that knowledge? But it all comes from experience. We get better by actually learning in the environment. So to have somebody that's like, hey, I want to take you with me. Come with me. Let me show you. Let me guide you to not make mistakes, but no, you will make mistakes. And then you learn from those. And I just love that principle because there is always that stigma of like, you have to go to school, you have to go to college. That's the only way you're going to be able to make it. And the trade schools get completely dismissed and all of the everyday professions get dismissed. Personal trainers, in food, photographers, all of these jobs that we use every single day, they get dismissed because it's not considered like a college job, a high paying job, but you're proving that like you're in it, you're doing the works and you can create a very successful business out of it. So having those people that are willing to teach the next generation, that's how we keep the cycle of giving back and all of these amazing jobs that are our everyday jobs alive. So I just love you sharing that. It's like, I had someone like be like, hey, let's do this together. And it was something that heightened your passion. And you were like, yeah, I really want to do it. Let's do it. I just love it. I think it's so cool.
She never had to take me under her wing, but she did. And it was so cool. And like I said, I learned everything hands-on. And I think that's too, just like, that's how I learn things is hands-on.
It's easier.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Being like a farm kid, so growing up on a farm, you literally learn how to do everything hands-on. Like there's no book telling you what to do. It's just you learn. So
all the best photographers I know didn't go to school for it. Yeah. Me too.
And we all learn differently. Some of us are visual learners, some of us are hands-on, like, and then there's a mix. So it's really good to kind of play into your strength of how you learn the best. And I just thought that was so cool.
So Jeffrey #1 knows me the best. What about filming athlete videos for comps? I really want to geek out on the games right now. So we're going to get into that right now. So you go from being a farm kid to apprentice photographer. Now last year, or you went to the games.
Yep.
So how did that?
Well, bravo.
Yeah,
like,
seriously.
amazing.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So how did that come about? Where was the decision? Did anybody ask you to go to the games? Is that just your own thing? You wanted to go get the experience?
So I started CrossFit. I'm going to start this. I started CrossFit in 2012. So I was like, someday it would be so cool to be a photographer at the CrossFit Games. Like I just was like, that is my goal. And I just kind of like did some research on how to like do it, and I could not get like my foot in the door. So like kind of almost like gave up on the opportunity on or like on like the vision of like going to the games and doing that stuff. And so I was on the Sevan podcast one day after I got done working out. I always just like hop on in the live chat, and I saw Clydesdale Media in the chat, and that's Scott. And I was like, hey, if you ever need a photographer for your
Oh yeah, wait, hold on. God bless Scott and Clydesdale Media.
yes,
I saw that he's having some issues, and
yes.
I really do hope that everything goes well and his and he gets back in to full swing. So
Yeah. I don't know
um
the full details on what's going on.
yeah,
but
me either. I saw a little post, but yeah, all love and blessings out to Clydesdale.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And I kind of just shot my shot basically. And
That's how you do it. You shoot
yeah,
your shot, baby. Yeah.
I was like, dude, if you ever need a photographer for anything, like let me know. I would love to, whatever, be a photographer. And I got off the live chat and like went on with my day, and I looked on Instagram, and I had gotten a message from Scott, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what? And he had asked me like, were you serious on the podcast? Like, are you actually serious? And I was like, yeah, like it would be an absolute dream. And so he was like, well, we actually are looking for somebody to come down to semifinals in Florida for Clydesdale Media. And I was like, I will be on a plane and I will go.
You're like me. I'll go.
Yep. And I was like, I don't care if I have to pay for my ticket. I just want to go and be in the space.
So you were ready to eat the whole cost, the expenses. You didn't care. You
write
just
it
wanted.
off. It's fine.
There we go. Okay, I like it. We're
The
learning.
beauties of
Taxes.
a business, right?
Yep.
The beauty of a
Okay.
business.
Amen.
So I got on a plane, and I had to fly on a plane by myself for the very first time, and I was terrified because I'm a small town farm kid. I've never.
I don't like planes either. And apparently I'm from the city, which I'm not from the city, but I don't like it either.
So like I went to semifinals, and then was literally put into the worst lighting conditions ever possible. So that was a good learning curve. But after the first day, Scott like was like, how do you feel? Like, are you okay? Like, you should have seen me the first event. I was like shaking with my camera because I was like,
bro, I know. Sorry, we're having a storm tomorrow. I gotta turn this off.
Oh,
it's our son's school. They're
it's like they're
school
canceling
tomorrow.
everything for
So
tomorrow because we're having a humongous
No?
storm. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, it's like a nor'easter or whatever. So we're gonna get messed up.
Okay. Wish we had
Go
more
ahead.
snow.
Sorry, I'm about to turn this phone off.
Well, on that note, Jess, it was so good to talk to you again. I'm gonna dip out. I'm gonna go get the baby, but I can't wait to hear the rest of it. So you guys have a great show.
It was
And
so
I'll
good
see you
meeting you.
You too, girl. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
Bye, babe. Have a great show.
Yeah.
So I was shot at semifinals. Was like literally surrounded by all these amazing photographers and videographers that I looked up to, and I couldn't believe I was in that space. And so then after semifinals was over, I flew home, and I was like still in shock that I even had done that. And then kind of leading up to the games, I was wondering if Scott was going to ask me to come to the games, because granted, it being in Madison, I didn't have to fly anywhere. I could just drive there. So that was kind of like nice. And then, he told me, he's like, we need to have you come to the games and shoot for us. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I got a media pass, which got me into pretty much anywhere.
That's what I was going to ask you. Were you were on the floor, you were in the media pit, like down there when we look at the behind the scenes from Sevan, you were like in the pit on the floor. That's crazy.
Yeah. I literally, when I got to be in the media pit, like right by all the athletes, I was like, holy crap, this is really happening. And even being
close and personal, just up close and personal, like
like
sweat dripping.
Literally, you could feel the sweat dripping off of them.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was really surreal. Just like coming from being in CrossFit so early in 2012, like there was athletes there, like masters athletes that I have been like, holy crap, like Sam Briggs. I was right
You
next
did,
to her.
so you were like you did adaptive masters or just like masters in individuals teams?
So for Clydes and Media, we were covering a couple masters athletes, and then we were covering just a few athletes that were in just individuals. So we just had to kind of like, I had to really make sure I got enough photos of all of them. And then basically I had to make sure that I got all of the winners from each event.
Okay.
The individual part of it. Yeah. So, yeah. And we started pretty early in the week whenever the Masters started, Wednesday or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I was there pretty early
And
on.
so then I want to go back to what Jeffrey number 1 asked is what's the difference between shooting like live action and just or is there a difference between shooting family photos with kids running around and weddings and whatever and then like live action full on athletics like people jumping over boxes and or do you want to answer this question?
Yeah.
From Jake Chapman, Jess, what's your favorite Nickelback album?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know a Nickelback album. Like one of his like older ones, like very old.
They're all old. We're old at this point. If you listen to Nickelback,
I like Nickelback.
Yeah. Most people won't admit to that.
Puddle of Mud?
I do too. Which one?
Puddle of Mud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Jeffrey number 2, look up Nickelback.
So shooting weddings and families, you do have a lot of moving people. Like you really have to like be a really good people watcher because when you're shooting a wedding, you have to really read the room and what's going on and know exactly what is going to happen next. Like, so as the bride is walking down the aisle, you need to know exactly when the bride is getting handed off to her groom and when the dad is giving her hugs or whatever. Like you have to know. And then like the first kiss, literally you have to have your camera ready, like, because you know exactly when that's going to happen. So like in a way, it's kind of the same.
A much bigger story to tell.
Yeah.
Almost like there's certain.
And also like wedding, you don't really a second time to shoot it. And like, that's the same thing with like the CrossFit games, like that event, you're never going to be able to shoot that event again. So it's kind of the same thing. Like, that was one big thing, like that I was really like kind of nervous about is I was like, okay, I need to make sure I get like the finish line shot, or the epic moments of certain events, like when Alex Kazan, when she lost her shoe and all of that stuff, like just all of those like key moments, like you need to make sure that you're getting that. So
you had to get the Clydesdale athletes and then you had to make sure that you got all the like event
winners.
Pressure there because are you just sitting around like, hey, I just want to shoot whatever I see? This over here look like I want to get Jake Douglas right now because he's like jacked and hot.
Oh
and
my god, he
has a nipple tattoo. Like, you know what I mean?
Eyes. I just like, yeah, I could stare at him all day.
That's what I'm saying. Like, do you get messed up? Are you like, so you can't be spaced out looking at, your favorite athletes and get lost in somebody's eyes?
A little bit at first, but then after the first, like at the CrossFit games, like after the first event with the individuals, like I was like, okay, I'm like, stop. I like didn't really fangirl. I just was like, holy crap. Like I saw these athletes that I've been, watching forever. And now I'm like, okay, I need to actually like put my head down and like get the shot. So then I like really got my focus and really kind of dove into all of that. But like there was a lot of athletes that
she's a fangirl, stop it.
But there was a lot of athletes that like I just wanted to capture some really cool shots of them, like how they move and if they had some really cool tattoos, like just cool stuff. Or like I wanted to shoot photos of everybody because that way I could like post about every athlete, not just the athletes that we were covering. So
and so let's get into this because this is definitely how many like did you meet Sevon and how many Sevonistas did you meet? Like the famous chat that, right? Because the chat is its own is its own entity, its own like part of the 7 podcast show. So
Yeah.
how, how many
So
hugs
when
and loves did you get?
oh my gosh. So the first day that I was there, I don't think Sevon was there yet, or maybe he was. I don't remember. I actually, so like, long story short, backstory. I met Hiller the year before at the CrossFit Games because that's when his like whole Batman thing got really big
Yep.
and whatnot. And my younger sister had competed at a CrossFit competition in Minnesota against one of his teams, so she like knew of him too. So she always talked about him. So that like I already had met him. So that wasn't like a like, oh my gosh, but it was still cool to talk to him because he like genuinely is like a really nice dude. And whenever him and his fiance, wife, whatever they are, actually have a wedding, he's like, you are gonna shoot my wedding. And I was like,
Oh, that's so cool. Awesome.
so
Bam. Yep.
but so it's funny when I met Sevon, he was like had like this weird hat on and a bandana, I think, and he had like his nano 2s on, and he was very sweaty. And he comes up into the media room, and I'm sitting at a table with Scott and I'm just editing away, and all of a sudden he comes up to the table and he's like talking to Scott, and he like reached his hand out to me and said, hi, I'm Sevon. And I was like, hi, I'm Jess. And then he kind of like looked at me like, how do I know you? And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm Rosie View. And he was like, his whole face just lit up, and he was like, oh my God. And he gives me like the biggest hug. For a small little man, he can give like a really nice hug. Like,
is he how tall are you?
I'm about 5'8", 5'9". I don't
So
know.
he really is like 5'4".
He's short. My mom is like 5'2", and I'm pretty sure he's about that tall.
Oh my God.
So, but it was like, after I met him, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, kind of really, actually, I was like really fangirling at the moment. I was just like, holy crap, this is Sevon. But like, I had also been watching the CrossFit podcast for years when he was at CrossFit. So like, I had already been watching him for how long?
Can we go back to nipple tattoos? I think I want one. Listen, I just have to say, Jake Douglas on the nipple tattoo like that. I think there's one shot of it. Literally, it's like up close and personal on one of the behind the scenes episodes, and I couldn't stop. Like I was like, that had to hurt. Like there's no way that didn't. Like you had to tear up a little bit, bro. And also, how do you just not follow him around? Period. Like he's got no neck, nothing but shoulders, a nipple tattoo. Like he just
eyes,
dude,
gorgeous,
crazy,
gorgeous.
Was there any what were your favorite athletes? Were there athletes where you were just like, holy crap, I'm like looking at Laura Horvath right now, or I'm looking at I mean, I know Sam Briggs. Yeah, Sam Briggs is OG, of course, and everybody's.
When Sam Briggs was done competing in the Masters, she was coaching somebody. I don't remember who it was, but I was in the media pit at North Park, and literally I was standing right next to her. Like, her hand was like right here by mine, and I was like, oh my gosh. And she's super nice. Like, she's so nice, but like, it's crazy to see her in person. She is like tiny. Like, really? I feel like I'm huge next to her.
She looks tall and skinny. That's weird.
Mean, she's very tall, but like, I just like feel like I feel like I'm a ginormous cow next to some of these athletes. Like,
oh, here we go. You're gonna make all these dudes start talking about milking men again. Like, great.
No, I really loved Laura Horvath. Alex Kazan is one of my favorites. I actually, a girl that used to go to my gym. She trains at Underdogs now out in Vegas. Her name's Ava George.
Okay.
She's always like posting photos with Alex Kazan and all that whole crew. So like, it's kind of cool to like see that. And hopefully maybe I'll be able to fly out there and take photos of her doing the open, possibly. We'll see. But
Any weird photos that you got from the games, like people being, sad or crying or throwing tantrums or being extra?
Um,
Because I know you always put out the pictures to like highlight the athletes and make them look great and strong and active and whatever, but any like sideline photos that were
there was a workout that in the Coliseum, and at the end of the workout, I think it was the sandbag event, and Noah Olsen was like holding onto his butt cheeks because they were like on fire, and I like caught the photo, and he was like, my butt cheeks, and like I posted it actually and tagged him in it, and he commented on it and everything, and I was
that's
like,
awesome.
oh my God, I've made it.
That's funny that he can laugh at himself because I would be mortified if my butt cheeks were out. That's like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. But I mean, they did have the one that wasn't Vellner. Didn't he almost crap himself in one event? So I guess we're past butt cheeks being out. I think everybody's okay with that.
I don't honestly.
Nothing
I
crazy.
feel like there's more like of those kind of photos, like behind the scenes, like where like Sevon probably caught more of that stuff. But like after events, like everybody's just dying. Like they're laying.
So where do you go after events? You don't go back in the like, were you back by the corrals? Do you get to go back in the, or you just get to be in the media pit by the floor?
So at North Park, you pretty much hung out around the whole entire North Park. Like you could leave if you wanted to, but if the events were like heat after heat, you basically had to stay out there and just wait for the next heat to start. In the Coliseum, we had to like wait to get into the media pit because basically you had to like have somebody walk you to the media pit because you had to walk through the warm-up area, and like they had to make sure like your phones weren't out and your cameras weren't on, because you weren't allowed to take any photos or all that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah.
So like it was kind of cool. Like you walk through there and you'd see the athletes warming up, and like I remember after Roman had hurt his foot, or what it was, his foot or his ankle?
Yeah, his foot.
Yeah,
he broke a bone in his foot.
All of a sudden, like we didn't know what was going on yet. All of a sudden, we like went through the athlete warm up, and we're like, Roman's on crutches. Something happened.
So you guys are not allowed to get any pictures of that. So it's special access to get pictures. I gotcha. So
yeah, special access, like Sevon, and I'm sure like people that had their own media.
Yeah. So, were you in the media pit with them? Were you in the media pit with like the Buttery brothers and the
Buttery Bros,
Craig Ritchie, all those?
Yep, Mayhem team.
Did they say anything to you? Did they like fist bump you as you walk by?
Or the Buttery Bros were like super chill, and they were pretty cool actually. The last day I wore my overalls just to like be like farm girlish, and like I got some comments from them about it. That was pretty cool. But they were like super cool. I mean, like the thing about the media pit in the Coliseum is it's such a tight spot, and we could only go on one side. So that was like, you were basically like fighting for a spot. Like you had to basically figure out like, okay, either I'm going to shoot at the finish line or I'm going to be in the middle, because just try to get a good shot. So I always tried to be by the finish line so I could kind of shoot down and get them like coming towards me. Yeah. So like I basically kind of stood my ground when I found a spot. I was like, nobody else is getting my spot. But like,
there you go. Hey.
Out at North Park, you had plenty of space to move around. So you just basically kind of like made your way around however you wanted to shoot. But like if you were trying to take a picture, everybody and anybody was like, oh, sorry, like they got out of your way right away. Like it was pretty cool that way. Like everybody was really courteous about that. So
there you go. Jan Clark, heard Craig Ritchie is lovely. Was he pleasant?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's not broke anymore.
I really didn't have anybody
crazy interactions.
I think people like, I think it's because maybe they didn't know who I was. But at the same time, like I was trying to make something of myself by trying to like stand out and like get the shot like everybody else was trying to do. So
What
you
was,
know?
and if you have one at all, I'm just curious, what was, sorry, what was the most annoying event to photograph? Like, if you had one event that was like the most annoying event to try to photograph, what was it?
Um, Probably the bike one, because it was so long. It was a long workout. Yeah, and plus it was so
Oh, just the
hot
one
out.
outside where they were just rolling around in circles on them. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
yeah, yeah. Otherwise, every other
You
event
got
was,
some really great shots.
yeah, like every other event was, I mean, pretty awesome. That one was kind of just like, all right, got my shot, like, of the athletes I need, and then I'm just gonna wait for whoever finishes. I need to get the finishing picture and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, we got a ton of comment questions. So let's go into it. I mean, but
Yeah,
this is good. Any negative interactions while you're out there?
not really. I mean, the only thing I think would maybe be negative was like, if somebody was getting, if we were like in the way of like the CrossFit photographers for CrossFit, and just like kind of knowing like where you're at like in the space. But otherwise, like, I honestly, like, I didn't know of any negative things, like, honestly, like.
Well, it's CrossFit's biggest event, right? You would hope that
Right.
everybody would be on their best behavior and I, to
Yeah.
put what they want to portray forward. Jake Chapman. Okay, fine. Do you ever delete photos because you get accidental cocks and vag? Or too many extra hog videos,
I mean,
or
honestly, there's sometimes like some events, like, you're trying to get a cool photo and all of a sudden, like, they're squatting and you're like, all right, there's just one big ass in my camera. Like, okay, never mind. I'll just shoot from a different angle.
that's actually really good job, Jake. What about the handstand walking? Like, you can like literally see their nuts and bolts when they're upside. Like, some of the video that they get of that, I'm like, wow, that's the whole package.
Yeah.
Do they know that that's on screen right now?
I mean, yeah. For those, I try to, like, basically I'll take my camera and you can shoot on live mode. So I don't have to be looking through my camera. I can just be looking on the screen. So I'll like face it down low enough where I can get like a cool shot of like their hands and like them walking up the ramp or whatever. Just, yeah. So like you're trying to like be creative on the fly. Is basically what you're doing. So like, oh yeah, that looks like something really cool. But like also like don't take a photo of all their junk. So
I mean, it's hard not to if
when they're going so fast.
right, but and what did you think about? I mean, I don't. Well, maybe it was this year too, or last year too. But what about the really short shorts on women that are white, like the white short shorts?
Like Stacy 12-hour shorts.
That's tough.
I mean,
Do you
I
just
feel like
avoid
at the end
that?
of workouts, like the girls' shorts are like half up their ass. So like, but like they don't at the moment, they're like working out so hard.
They don't even care. Yeah,
And their bodies all look amazing anyway. So like, what does it matter?
true. Good story.
But so
There's so many questions in here,
there's
girl. I don't even know what
honestly
to do
like
for you right now.
this is hilarious. But Alex Kazan, she is so beautiful. I love her hair. She has like the cutest butt. She has the cutest
Here we
butt.
go.
And I just when she like walked away at one event, I was like, oh my God, she just has the cutest butt.
Well, isn't she like 20? That's what happens when you're like 20.
Yeah.
Your butt is still where it's supposed to be. That doesn't happen later on. The things happen.
Yeah. Her husband too, let me say, is the sweetest like man ever. Like he actually was kind of shooting with Clydesdale Media because we were covering Alex Kazan was one of our individual athletes. So he got a lot of good coverage of behind the scenes because he was obviously with her the whole time. But he loves his wife so much.
Oh, you can tell, yeah.
It's so cute. I'm like, I just want to go out to Las Vegas and like take some couples photos with them and just like, oh my gosh, they're so cute.
Does anybody else ever like, do you ever get, sorry, you said that Hiller wants you to come take photos for him when he gets married or whatever they're going to do. You ever get anything else like that from other athletes?
Not really yet, I guess. One of the Masters athletes that we covered, his name was Rudy. His wife, she was like, when we come to Wisconsin, because they come to Wisconsin to visit some family, and they're like, whenever we come back to Wisconsin, we want you to take family photos of them. So I was like, oh, that's absolutely, I would love to.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of all I got. I mean, that's kind of all I really gotten. So I don't know.
Are you going to because now isn't the Masters, they're a whole different, they're not even at the CrossFit Games anymore. They're a whole different location. Are you going to that this year, or do you know where you're going this year, or do you have any plans for this year?
I don't know yet. And like I said, I would ask Scott, but obviously.
Yeah, right. Scott. Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I have no idea.
Do you want to? Would you do it again if it was?
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love
That's just like your passion. You're just like, I don't care how much money I have to spend. I don't care how long I have to travel. I'm going.
And honestly, too, a part of me was like going into like even shooting at semifinals. I was like, who am I? Like the first day, I was like, who am I to be shooting alongside these people that have the best equipment? They have the top of the line cameras, and here am I have two really amazing cameras. I literally invested in a long length lens right before semifinals. I was like, who am I that I'm here? Because my equipment's not that good, you know? And I had to get that out of my head after the first day because
if you got the opportunity, then it's your opportunity. You worked for that opportunity. Go get it.
Yeah. And honestly, a part of me feels the same way in wedding photography and like family photography and all that kind of stuff. You see all these wedding photographers that have like the state-of-the-art equipment, the best of the best. Yeah, okay, if I could afford a $6,000 camera body, I totally would buy it, but I don't got those kind of funds.
Right.
So, I mean, I literally started on like the lowest grade camera possible, and my photos, I thought at that time, were really, really good. And now I'm shooting on something that's like way higher up, and my photos are still really, really good. So it doesn't honestly matter what kind of camera you shoot on. Like, as long as you know what you're shooting and how to shoot it. Like, I started shooting on film a lot now too.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ball game. So like, if you can shoot on film, you can shoot on any kind of camera. It doesn't matter. So
what is your most, we asked about like, oh, I just wanted to show some more of these because I really do love the photos that you do for, you know, weddings and events and people's, it's awesome.
The funny thing about this couple, they were not going to hire a wedding photographer, and their the mother-in-law, she knew
hold
me.
on. They got married?
Not her. That's her dad.
Thank God. Okay, moving on. I almost had a heart attack. You said that right when I was on that picture, and I was like, there is no way.
Funny story. I photographed his wedding. And the young couple was not going to have a wedding photographer. And her dad and wife were like, no, you need a wedding photographer. So they hired me on for their little backyard wedding, which
okay, thank God. That's her husband. Okay, I'm good. I'm okay.
Yeah, they were gonna hire a photographer. I'm so glad because
it's really good. That's awesome.
Like, I was there for 5 hours.
That's awesome.
And their photos were spectacular. But yeah, so
let's go. Two more things. We'll wrap this up real quick. Jake Chapman. Her dad is hotter.
God. Oh, Jake.
Oh, that's good. That did scare me for a second when you said that right when I
Yeah,
was on that photo. I was like, oh
you
my
never know
God.
nowadays.
Yeah, you don't know that. Yeah, exactly.
Are you the dad or are you the groom?
That's tough. That's like a Netflix documentary. I can't do that.
Literally.
But no, what we talked about, what would have been like your most shaky moment at the games, but what was your best one? And you can give me a couple. I mean, meeting whoever or photographing whoever, wherever, anything.
Um, Man, there's so many moments I could think of.
Judy Reed, I have nothing against older men, but I mean that was a huge difference. I listen. If she was doing it, no, I'm happy. That was her dad. She has a beautiful husband that, yes, will be around with her forever.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah. Probably, man. There are so many moments. I'd have to actually look back on my phone to
Yeah,
even look at
I
the
can't
photo.
even imagine how crazy that was for you. Even just flying in and like, how was the crowd? Like when you heard the roar of the crowd and you were taking pictures at the finish line, how cool was that?
Holy cow. Being in the space like when Roman was trying to finish that workout,
With the double under, yeah.
um, that was intense. But that's just like that's what the CrossFit community is. And like I feel like everybody was bawling their eyeballs out as I'm trying to just like take all the photos.
How do you keep it together? Because don't you just want to react too? Don't you want to be
I
emotional
mean,
too?
I feel like everybody was reacting in the media pit, but like at the same time, that's the thing is like you're reacting, but also you're like, shit, I gotta capture this moment too.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing on a wedding day. But yeah, Roman, probably that moment was like pretty intense to capture. Honestly, too, um, trying to capture a lot of moments of Laura Horvath. Um, that was pretty cool. My gosh, I'm tweaking on what her
No, that's
name.
cool. No, I totally get it. I would be too. I would. There's no way.
Kelly Baker.
Oh, yep.
We covered her for Clydesdale Media. But when she got to stay in and compete the next day, and they had to do that lift, that was super cool to capture that moment for her.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty exciting for her to like still be competing the next day after she thought she was done. What else? I think there was a couple. Well,
No, don't worry. Don't stress
yeah,
yourself. Yeah,
there's
don't
so
stress
many
yourself.
moments. Yeah, I'd have to look back at all my photos, all of my thousands of photos. I only took I think I filled up 6 SD cards full at the games, which is like 3,000 photos a card.
Damn. No, but that's awesome though. That's so cool. I'm excited to see what you're gonna do next. I hope you do. I hope you get to go again to whatever it is, wherever you want to go. Like
Yeah,
I want to see what I would love for you to go to Wadapalooza. I want to see what kind of pictures you would take at like a Wadapalooza type event. That'd
dude,
be super awesome.
it'd be cool. It'd be
And then the
super cool.
last question that I wanted to get with you before I let you go is how do you have you been following the Hiller challenge with Athena?
I have been.
So I'm curious, how did you feel about that when she first put it out there, put that first post up challenging him to it?
Honestly, I thought that takes a lot of, I should say a lot of balls, but it takes
Yes,
a
hey,
lot.
yeah, it's cojones, baby.
But if she needs the accountability and somebody to be like, hey, like this is what we're gonna do, and that's amazing. If she recognizes that she needs a coach, I mean that's awesome because like she had said, what was the last episode you did with her, that
Yeah,
coaches need a coach.
yeah,
I 100% agree. Like, yeah, you're coaching other people, but like for your own personal self, you also need a coach to keep you accountable on your fitness and on your, what you're eating and how much water you're taking in and all the things. Yeah, because I could see how you could slip off pretty easy because you're trying to like make sure that everybody else is okay, but what about yourself?
Is it fun for you to watch this? Is this like, were you a Hiller fan first and then found Athena, or did you know about both of them at the same time? Because you said you used to watch the CrossFit
Yeah,
podcast way back in the day. So I did too, but I never actually. I think her podcast was one of the last ones. I don't think I ever saw. I mean, I've seen it now, but
yeah.
I didn't see it at the time.
I
So
remember I remember her being on the CrossFit podcast. I remember watching that podcast. Um, so I started following her before Hiller. I think
oh,
I
okay,
started. I think I finally knew of Hiller when the whole Batman thing came out.
right,
And
right.
then my
Oh
younger
yeah,
sister was like, "Oh yeah, I know Hiller. I have him as a friend on Facebook." Like, because she had competed on a team against him in
gotcha.
Minnesota. So yeah, so I kind of like knew of Athena before. Um, so
So last question: do you see any difference in Hiller since this has all started, or do you see the same Hiller?
honestly, so a lot of people are so negative about Hiller, and I'm gonna be completely honest. You have to meet him in person to actually physically know like what he's like as a person, and meeting him and getting to know him, he is like a genuine person. He sweetest man I think he's such a nice guy. Like he just like talks as raw and real as it is, just like Sevon. So like all the hate he gets on social media and all the things, like I feel like if people just like got to know him as a person, they would like be like exactly they would think the same thing that I think. I think he's just
I mean, Dave gave him flowers last night, which I was super shocked about, and I'll talk about later on the being in the bat. But Dave kind of gave him flowers, or it wasn't last night, but Friday night
yeah. Yeah.
with Sevon. He gave him a little bit of flowers there. I heard it. I mean, he was
Mhm.
like, I dislike a lot of the stuff that he says or whatever, but he said he said that that Hiller's necessary. So I was
Well, to be honest, when I started CrossFit in 2012 and then doing my first open, I didn't do my first open until 2013 because I started CrossFit in the summertime. So like my coach, he's just like Hiller. Like he's like, if you can't squat floor parallel, that doesn't count.
right.
Like you need to make sure your reps are 100% like perfect. So I feel like, in the CrossFit space, like that's what us OGs like learned, and that's what we know. So like I get where he's coming from. Like he is trying to just make sure that people are fully 100% accountable for what they're doing. And if you're not squatting below parallel, like you should get an O rep. If you're not, coming out of a ring muscle up the right way, you should not get a rep for that. Like, just like those things. It's just, it's common sense what it comes down to. So
Awesome. Yeah, it's
yeah,
gonna be fun. Jan Clark, I completely well, I mean, I don't know because I don't know him, but that's what I assume too, is Hiller is only like that while people are competing, but in real life, he's out there trying to help CrossFit in the community. But
right.
we'll see. This will be a fun journey to be on. I like to ask everybody that I can who follows it what
Yeah.
they think about it too. I think it's fun and it's good to talk about.
Yeah.
But girl, thank you. I really do appreciate it. I
Yeah.
hope we get to fangirl out again. And
Absolutely. This was fun.
yeah, it was cool. It was your first. No, you've been on one before.
I've been on Clydesdale.
No, right.
Yeah, for like a couple times.
Good.
But I like a side note, I just like I feel like, with us talking about podcast stuff, excuse me. I am really excited to get my own podcast running because I like really want to tell my story, but also like everybody else's story that their story matters too.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you having me come on and just kind of talk a little bit.
I love having you. I can't wait to pick your brain nonstop about cameras and whatever because I
Heck
want to
yeah.
learn. I want to learn what you know too about filming. So that was really cool. So
Heck yeah. And I'll come out. I should just come on out and take photos of you and your family. And
yeah,
you guys
wait till
working out.
summertime. Right now sucks. We're about to like Southampton right now sucks. So
It's not great here either.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
It's
let's
cold.
summertime, come to the Hamptons, hang out, experience the ridiculousness that is the Hamptons, and then
Yeah.
we'll take some really good pictures and it'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Awesome. Guys, thank you all for hanging out. I really appreciate all of you. As always, it was a blast. Thank you for all you got me dying internally. Trying to hold some of those laughters in was difficult, but you had me dying. Appreciate you all. And let's see you on the flip side.
Absolutely.
Cool beans, Clinton things out.